All right, we're here. That took me longer than it should have to get anything going on. You'll see there's animals behind me, which is awesome. So, sorry, I am just, figuring my things out right now because there we go. I just need to get the chat up because you never know. You never know. I might need the chat up. I need it. We're not going to worry about it. We're not going to worry. There we go. I just need to make sure I've got the chat up. It took me longer than it should have to get that up. And I've got to put it in the shade because that's so annoying that I can't see it very well. Because it's very sunny out here. Anyway, welcome to Andersen Acres. My name's Leanne, and I run a small hobby farm. If you're new here, you might not know that. And I've got, they're being weird. What are you guys doing? There's not even any bugs there. Oh, yes, there are. Did they come up because it rained? So, yes, we have the birds. And we have the horse and the goat in the background. So, I'm Leanne. If you're new here, welcome. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. So, today is the 4th Friday of the month, and we do a theme to our live streams. What we do is we talk about a different topic each time. We have a farm talk, and we have an in the kitchen, and we have an animal spotlight. And today is myths and controversies, where we talk about one specific myth or controversy in horse. And in this case, we are going to talk about a myth. Okay? So that's what we're doing today, is talking about a myth. Because myths abound. Hi, there's a duck over here now. But myths abound in the hobby farming world. And it doesn't mean anyone is stupid. Okay, it's easy to believe these, especially if you don't know any better. And it's easy to not know any better. Because let's be honest, how many of us, I grew up around animals, but what if you didn't? What if you grew up in the city and then you've decided you would like to start a hobby farm? I'll just move out of the way so you can see Shadowfax a little bit better. But what if you want to start a hobby farm? What if you've decided that's what you want to do, but you've never been involved with animals? Well, it's easy to accidentally start believing some things that are definitely untrue. Okay? So you do want to consider some of the things you might have heard. And today we're going to talk about one in particular that I've been hearing a lot lately. So this year there have been kind of an influx of people first getting started in hobby farming and chicken keeping and rabbit keeping and all that good stuff. There have been an influx of new people. That's why chicks were so hard to find in the spring, because there's an influx of new people. Hi, Blue. The turkey's name is Blue, by the way, if you're new here. But there have been an influx of new people. And that influx of new people means a lot of people don't know very much. And so they will fall for a lot of those older myths. Hi. Hi, Jabba. Hi, buddy. I've got a rooster here. But there's a lot of people who will fall for... I'll move this way. Shadowfax is over that shoulder now. Turn this so you can see him a little bit better. But there are people who have fallen for a lot of these different myths. So we're going to tackle one today. Okay? Today we're going to talk about... I've heard this one for a lot this year, to be clear. So that's why I'm talking about it. The myth I'm talking about is, don't you need a rooster for your hens to lay eggs? Okay? I get where that's coming from. I really, really, really do. Okay? But you do... Thank you, Jabba. You do not need a rooster for your hens to lay eggs. Okay? You simply do not. It is not something that is required. But there is a lot more to the story, and there are reasons people believe this particular myth. So let's dig in. By the way, if you have a question, you can drop it in the chat. If you're watching this as a replay, a VOD, you can drop it in the comments, and I'll try to include it in our next live stream. We will end with a bunch of questions that got submitted since last week. So, where does this myth come from? I need to get a rooster if I want my hens to lay eggs at all. you don't. But where does it come from? It's a logical assumption if you think that eggs equal babies and babies need a dad. Okay? If you think the eggs are babies and therefore babies need a dad, therefore you have to have a rooster to make the babies, it's a logical assumption in that way. A lot of people do not realize that hens just ovulate naturally. The ladies just do their thing. The layer ladies are just going to lay. Okay? That's what they do. The egg you eat for breakfast, especially if they're store-bought eggs. So in the factory where the hens lay the eggs, if you buy them from the store, most of the time they don't have a rooster. 99% of the eggs you eat are unfertilized. Okay? They're fertile, meaning, well, most of them are. They're fertile, meaning if there was a rooster in that pen, they have the potential to be a baby, but they are not fertilized if there is not a, turn this way, but they are not fertilized if there is not a rooster on the premises. Okay, fertilized means the sperm hits the egg, there's a potential for a baby. It doesn't mean there's a guarantee of a baby. It means there's a potential. Okay? But the real miracle here is that the hen's body is always working. Okay? Whether there's a rooster or not. Rooster or not, you are still going to get eggs. So a lot of people used to believe this, and a lot of people still do. And it's simply because in old-time farmy times, like my grandparents and my great-grandparents, everyone had a rooster anyway. So it was pretty easy before we could actually delve into the science of it. It was pretty easy for people to just assume that, well, you must have to have a rooster because you have roosters and your hens are laying eggs. So it's easy to see where that belief comes from, but it's just not true. So let's talk about some chicken reproductive basics. Okay, and yes, I do have notes. I don't want to miss an important point. Somebody asked me if I was reading off a script. Not a script. I have notes. Okay, I have some notes. You need notes, just so I don't miss something important. So, some basic reproductive chicken basics. Hens start laying, depending on the breed, between 5 and 9 months old. And I say 9 months, maybe 10 months, because if you got silkies or one of those other real fancy breeds, there's a good chance that you're waiting forever for them to lay. If you have a production breed, 4 or 5 months. So it varies by breed. But you're going to be waiting months, depending on the breed. Egg production is triggered by daylight, nutrition, and health, not roosters. If your chickens are getting enough daylight, they have the right foods, and they are happy and in relatively good health, they're going to produce some eggs for you. Okay? The presence of roosters only means the egg could become a chick if you incubate it. It doesn't mean there will be no eggs at all if you don't have the rooster. So, fertile eggs are for those who don't want to hatch chicks. Okay? Fertilized eggs are where there's a rooster present. The vast majority of eggs are fertile. The vast majority of eggs you buy at the grocery store are not fertilized. Very important distinction. Fertile means it could have been a baby if there was a boy. Fertilized means there was a baby, and if you incubated it, it might be a baby. Okay? It might be a baby. There was action, we'll call it. So it's important to note the difference between the two terms. A lot of us just say fertilized, and we just pretend fertile doesn't exist, but they do. Most of them are fertile. As long as that hen is fertile, the egg is fertile, it's only fertilized if the rooster's been doing his job or if you have a rooster at all. So, why might you want a rooster if you don't need a rooster to lay eggs? Well, one, they're pretty. I think roosters are gorgeous. I absolutely adore roosters. You might have noticed a few minutes ago when they were all walking by, there's like 6 roosters in the group. It's because I really like roosters. So you might want roosters because you like roosters and because they're pretty, right? So you might like them for that reason. But you also might want to hatch eggs. And if you want to hatch the eggs, you do need a rooster. You don't need a rooster for your hen to lay the eggs. If you don't have a rooster, you can incubate those eggs all day long and not one of them's going to hatch because they were not fertilized by a rooster. Okay? Another good reason to have roosters is they protect the flock. They can protect the flock from stray dogs, from hawks, mostly by warning. Okay? Sometimes by fighting off a predator. Usually the rooster loses his life in the process. But sometimes they will fight off a predator. And they'll at least warn the flock if there is a predator. A good rooster, anyway. I have had some roosters that were lazy bums. I've had a couple that would just kind of lay there and go, yeah, well, that's a hawk, and just not do anything. But a good rooster will warn the flock that there's a danger and won't just stare up at the sky and go, yeah, he might eat you. So a good rooster will do his job. Okay, a good rooster. So you can also use roosters to encourage broody hens to sit. The presence of a rooster and the act of her mating with the rooster could encourage your hens to sit and become broody and to attempt to hatch eggs. So again, there's no point in a broody bird. Can't even talk. But there's no point in a broody bird if you don't have a rooster because her eggs aren't going to hatch. But if you have the rooster and she's incubating her own eggs instead of you putting them in the incubator, well, he might encourage her to go broody. And going broody's never a bad thing if you want the babies. I currently have a broody hen who is sitting on rocks. And I've been trying to break her of it, but... So if you want a broody hen, having roosters around can encourage it. If you don't want a broody hen, that's a different story and not the topic of today's live stream. So we're not going to go there because it's driving me a little nuts right now. So, around here, our Great Pyrenees handle most of the predator work. But our roosters do warn when there's bald eagles in the area. We do live, if you go about 25 minutes north of us, there's a bald eagle nesting ground. So there are a lot of bald eagles in the area. Having the roosters really does encourage them warning the hens about bald eagles in the area. We don't... Who was just running past? That was Sauron. But we don't want our birds taken by eagles, so it is a good thing that we have the roosters because they'll warn the hens. And it sounds terrible, but roosters also make some pretty good cannon fodder. So this sounds mercenary. But in the hobby farming and farming world, hens have more value than roosters. If you have a few extra roosters, they might sacrifice themselves or become the target. And as much as it sucks to kind of lose a rooster, it sucks more to lose a hen. Okay? So that's another good reason to have roosters is it sounds bad, I know. I know it sounds bad. But they can be half decent cannon fodder. And they can crow for no good reason. They're crowing in the middle of the day for absolutely no good reason. And it's just because they can. Okay? That's what they just can. They can, so they will. And if you're wondering what the white thing right up behind me on the ground is, that's a goat who's half asleep. So, when would a rooster not be helpful? Well, roosters can be really noisy, and this is people's primary complaint about roosters. They can be kind of noisy. So a noisy rooster, especially at 4 a.m., can get you in trouble with your neighbors if you don't live rural enough. Where we are, it doesn't matter. We can't even see a neighbor where we are. But if you live in town, for example, you're often not allowed to keep roosters. Some roosters can also be aggressive. So that's another reason some people don't like roosters, especially towards kids and newcomers, people they don't know. Roosters can occasionally be aggressive. We generally don't have that problem. Most of our roosters are silkies, but we do have a couple, like Jabba, where he'll lay down his life for his flock, even if he thinks that the threat to his flock is my brother coming over for a visit. So sometimes you got to be on top of the roosters because they can be a little bit territorial. And if they don't know you, things happen. You can also end up in an overbreeding situation. So the ideal ratio of roosters to hens kind of depends on the breed a little bit. We have more roosters than a lot of people think we should, but we free range and we lock up our breeding groups. And it is very breed dependent. Silkies, for example, you probably want to have one rooster to every 3 or 4 hens if you want maximum fertility. If you have that with other breeds that are quite end up in an overbreeding situation. So you might want to par down the roosters if your hens are getting kind of beat up, because if you watch a hen and a rooster mate, it's a little rough. So the girls can end up kind of roughed up. And if the girls end up kind of roughed up, they can get damaged almost. So you might need a chicken apron. I have to put a chicken apron on one of our girls because she's everybody's favorite. So she's going to have to wear an apron for a few weeks. Our Houdini, just because they like her a little bit too much. I have to sit up a little bit. But so you might not want a rooster, or you might not want as many roosters if your hens are being a little bit damaged. And that can happen if you're not careful with exactly how many roosters you have. You also might not want a rooster if you're simply not allowed to have one. Okay? Which also happens. It can happen where you live in an area where you're not allowed roosters in town, or you're not allowed roosters even if you live in a slightly rural area because there's too many people too close together. So you might not want a rooster if you live in an area where roosters are restricted. And I never encourage anyone to break the rules because you'll get caught. The number of people who tell me, well, what do I do? My HOA said I can't have my roosters. Like, were you supposed to have roosters? No? Well, you have a bit of a problem. My solution there is, probably shouldn't have bought the house in the HOA, but not all of us have those options. You may have to get rid of the rooster because they can force you to. So you might not want roosters if you live in an area where they're simply not allowed. So there are a few other related myths that kind of go along with this one. One of them is eggs don't go bad faster if they're fertilized, or eggs go bad faster if they're fertilized. They don't. A fertilized versus unfertilized egg, it doesn't matter. They go bad at the same rate. They'll keep really well for 2 to 3 weeks on the counter unwashed. If you wash them, you got to put them in the fridge. Okay, because if you wash them and leave them out on the counter, they will go bad very quickly. So they'll stay for a good 2 to 3 weeks on the counter unwashed, and then once you wash them, you stick them in the fridge, and they're good for several weeks. Not forever. Eggs do eventually go bad, but whether they're fertilized or not has nothing to do with whether or not the egg will go bad faster. Okay, nothing to do with it. Another one that I sometimes hear is, I can't eat my chicken's eggs because I have a rooster and they could be fertilized. It doesn't matter. If you collect the eggs quickly, okay, so you're collecting daily. I collect like 6 times a day because I'm out here all day long. But if you're collecting daily, eggs can't start developing until they've been about 24 hours in an incubator or under a hen. And the temperature of an incubator or under a hen is around 37.5 Celsius or 99.5 Fahrenheit. That is a really high temperature. It's probably not that hot in your barn. If it is, you have other problems because that's hot. But it's probably not that temperature in your barn. If it's not that temperature in your barn, then you are fine to eat the eggs because they couldn't develop. And if you're collecting them every day, the hen didn't sit on them. So if you collect daily, take them inside. You can wash them and put them in the fridge or leave them on your counter for a while. I leave them on the counter until I need a dozen at a time. And then I wash them, put them in the fridge, and then I leave the rest on the counter till I need another dozen. As long as they're not sitting under a hen and you don't mistakenly put them in your incubator, you can eat them. Okay, the difference between a fertilized egg and an unfertilized egg is literally one portion of a cell. Okay, I bit my lip there. So it's fine to eat a fertilized egg. As long as the hen hasn't been sitting on it, you're fine. Another one I hear is I have to have a rooster or my hens will be sad. It's okay. Hens do not know that they don't have a rooster friend. Okay, it is absolutely okay to have a bunch of hens and no roosters, especially if you live in an area where you're not allowed to have a rooster. So it's absolutely okay to say, you know what, I just don't want roosters. I just want the hens for their eggs. That's okay. You don't need a rooster. Your hens will be fine. They don't get sad or lonely without a rooster. And the other thing is, if I don't have roosters, my hens will never go broody. No. The rooster can encourage them to go broody, but the lack of a rooster does not prevent them from going broody. Especially if you have something like a silkie who basically live to be broody. They'll go broody whether you want them to or not. Okay? So don't expect that you will never have to deal with broodiness just because you don't have a rooster. If you have a broody breed, they're going to go broody. Some breeds are known for never going broody, so if you never want a broody hen, I would breeds. Hello, Shadowfax. This isn't about you today, but he wants it to be. He's a good horse. So, at this point, I've collected a whole bunch of questions that people have been asking me over the last week when I told them what the topic of the live stream was going to be today. So I'm going to answer it, and most of the people who ask these questions actually tune in later as a VOD or a VOD. They rewatch it. So if you are here right now, you can drop a question in the chat, and I'll try to answer it. If not, if you're watching this as a replay, you can send me a question in the comment section of any of the videos, or you can drop me a line on Facebook, and I will try to include that question next week. But for now, I'm going to deal with the questions I already have. I think I have about 30 of them. I can't remember how many I have. I was just adding them to the list. Okay, so I have some of the questions that are myth-specific, specifically relating to the myth we talked about today. So this question is, do you think hens needed a rooster? Did you think hens needed a rooster to lay eggs before you started raising chickens? No, but that's because my family has raised chickens. So even though I didn't, my mom grew up on a farm. Okay, my grandma grew up on a farm. Okay, I grew up as a country girl. I never thought that, but I went to school with a lot of kids who did. And usually it was town kids who'd never had a rooster, never had chickens, always bought their eggs at the grocery store. Most of them had never even been to a farm. So yes, quite a few of those people did believe that. I hope they don't now, but they did. Have you ever tried hatching your own fertilized eggs? Yes, I hatch all the time. I've got eggs. I've got about, I think, 40 chicks, 50 chicks probably. In our baby barn, I've got another, I want to say probably about 15 to 20 chicks hatching right now. I have probably 80 eggs in the incubator due to hatch over the next 3 weeks. More eggs are going in tonight. Yes, I hatch my own fertilized eggs. I hatch my silkies, and I hatch my layer eggs, and I hatch my quail eggs. I have quail, but they're way over there. We can't see them from here. But I do have quail. What's your rooster to hen ratio? Okay, so my rooster to hen ratio is too high. And that's okay because most of them are silkies, and silkies are pretty easygoing, laid back guys. So I've got 6 roosters to... I actually have more hens than I thought. I probably have 18 to 20 hens. 16, 17, 19 hens. I have 19 hens. So that's not terrible, right? That's about a 1 to 3. That's not terrible, but it's higher than most, it's higher than most people would recommend. So mine's a little bit high. Don't go that high unless you have really easygoing roosters. Again, most of my roosters are silkies. 5 of them are silkies. 1 of them is not. One of them, he fertilized my layers eggs, and he's Jabba. Where did they go? Oh, they're way over there. They're way over there, and that's a duck. Right there. That's a duck. So that's not a rooster. That's a duck. Just kind of standing there waiting for treats. I don't have any treats right now, Delilah. I know. She's not the only duck. I have other ducks, but right now she's the one waiting for snacks. So I don't have any snacks. She's going to have to wait. I already gave them snacks. Next question. Have you ever had a rooster go after a predator? Yes, sort of. When we lived at our old location, we have a lot of coyotes here too, but we actually had coyotes come into the barnyard at our old location. We didn't have guardian dogs yet. I didn't know that I should have them. I learned. And a couple of coyotes came in, and Shadowfax, the white mini horse right here, started chasing them off. And a couple of the roosters went on the warpath with them. Did they do any good? I don't think so. I think it was Shadowfax and his flashing hooves. But they were pretty good at doing their thing. You know, they tried. They tried. They tried. Why do I have emails coming right now? Nobody cares. Way too many emails. Every once in a while I get a batch of emails for no good reason. Okay. What's my opinion? Are roosters worth the trouble? I love roosters. Some people hate them. Okay, so it's really personal preference. Do you like roosters? Then you might want to get some. If you don't like roosters, then maybe not. But I happen to adore a good rooster. Like I said, we have 6. My personal favorite is Jabba, and he's not even the Silky, and I love Silkies. Silkies are my jam. But I really adore roosters, so I think they're worth the trouble, and I don't find them to be that much trouble at all. But again, we free range, which gives them a lot of options. They're able to wander around and do their thing most of the time. They're fine. So yeah, roosters are fine for us, but they don't suit everyone's situation. Okay, so if roosters don't work for you, that's okay. Roosters work for us. They are completely wonderful. The goat is getting up and scratching herself. That's good. She's alive. I get people wondering if she's dead, because often she's just like laying on the ramp or something. Yeah, she's fine. See, live. She's fine. She's even walking. Look at that. Not asleep. Do you separate roosters during breeding season? I do not. Now, I have breeding pens that I set up with specific roosters and specific hens that I want eggs from. But in general, no. I just let everyone do their own thing. Right now, I think everyone's off in the bush. At least that's the direction all the sound is coming from. Yeah, I think they've wandered into the bush. And they spend most of their day in the bush, to be honest. So sometimes when I'm filming, you don't really see them because they're off in the bush doing their thing, and Arwen's laying down again. That was nice of you to go, and Shadowfax is laying down. That was nice of you to get up for 30 seconds, though, baby. Prove you weren't dead. That's good. Anyway. How many roosters have you had? Any favorites? Oh, over the years, I've had lots. My absolute favorite was years ago now. I think he died in 2023, but his name was Sam, and he was a red partridge silky, red and gold partridge silky. He was beautiful, and it wasn't just that he was beautiful, he was actually sweet. He would come to the door every morning, wait for you to come outside. He would, when my mom was over, he would sit beside my mom while she had coffee. It was really cute. He was my all-time favorite rooster. Now I love Jabba. Jabba is awesome, and he's the son of one of our hens that is probably my favorite hen, Dale, and Jabba's her son. And he's awesome, and I love him, and he follows me around the yard, and he's absolutely great. But he's not Sam. Some of them are perfect, and some of them are, well, if you raise chickens for meat, sometimes they go to freezer camp. So it depends on, I bit my lip again, but it depends on the rooster. That's a good rooster. I like that rooster. We don't have bad roosters. I wouldn't tolerate a bad one. Have you ever had to rehome or cull a rooster? I have only had one bad one, and it was years ago. Years and years ago, and I'm trying to remember his name. But he was a silky cross, and he was crossed with, I think, a Swedish flower. And he definitely was not my favorite. And he was a little bit aggressive. And we didn't cull him, but we did rehome him. He was, because he was part silky, he had black skin, and he had to go. He was really aggressive, like he was kicking at my son. And so, yes, I've had a rooster I've had to get rid of, and who couldn't stay on the farm, because I won't keep a bad rooster. Don't keep a bad rooster. There are so many lovely, sweet roosters out there. If your rooster's being nasty, if you can't fix it, and a lot of times you can't, they're just going to rooster as they rooster. If you can't tolerate a nasty one. There are so many lovely, lovely roosters out there of all breeds. So whatever breed you're interested in, you can find a good rooster, especially if you raise them from young. So don't tolerate one that's beating the snot out of your kids. It's not okay. What's the worst behavior you've ever seen from a rooster? The one I was just talking about, beating the heck out of my kids. Especially my younger son would chase him around and go after him. It's not acceptable. You can't go after my youngest son. It's not. What would stop me from having roosters? Nothing. Unless I lived in an area where I wasn't allowed them. As long as I am allowed roosters, I am going to have roosters because they're fantastic. I absolutely adore roosters. So there's very little that would stop me from having a rooster. I think probably the only thing that would stop me, the only single thing that would stop me from having a rooster is if I lived in an area where they were not permitted. How many eggs are your hens laying right now? Oh, we're at the height of summer. Well, it's not really the height. It's still darn cold, but we are approaching the longest day of the year. June is only about a month away here. Well, the summer solstice is about a month away. They're laying a lot. So I have 19 hens. I'm getting like between 15 and 19 eggs a day. It's a good thing I sell eggs because I'm getting the eggs. Lots of eggs. Do you ever refrigerate your eggs or do you keep them on the counter? A little of both. What I do with my eggs, they go on the counter in a basket. Okay. When I need to fill a carton of eggs, I have 2 reusable cartons of eggs in my fridge. I wash a dozen and then I put them in the fridge. So they're fine on your counter for 2 to 3 weeks, easily. However, I don't like washing eggs as I'm using them. And you should wash them before you use them. They were laid in a barnyard. They came out of a chicken. They should be washed before you use them. Whether you wash them before and put them in the fridge or whether you wash them right before you use them, it doesn't matter. But I don't like washing eggs when I'm about to bake a cake. So I wash them by the dozen. And otherwise they stay on my counter. They're fine on the counter for a couple of weeks, easy. So 2 to 3 weeks, leave them on the counter. It's fine. You can wash them and refrigerate them immediately if you like. It's really personal preference. As long as you don't you don't wash your eggs and then leave them on the counter. So don't combine the methods. Either wash them and put them in the fridge or don't wash them and leave them on the counter. Don't mix and match. One of the two. What's the largest eggs your hens have ever laid? A triple yolker. I had a hen and it was, so normally if I get an egg that's this big, this egg was that big. So it was triple the size. It was huge and it was a triple yolker. It was a big one. Have you ever had a hen lay a fairy egg or a double yolker? Yes, I get double yolkers from young hens and I get a triple yolker that one time. And fairy eggs are also from a new chicken who's just starting to lay. So fairy eggs are somewhat common if you have new birds, young birds that are just going into their first laying season. Their body has to work out the kinks. And a lot of those kinks are teeny tiny fairy eggs. If you don't know what a fairy egg is, they're about that big. Okay. They are usually all white, no yolk. And they're awfully cute. They're not really useful. Okay. They are not they're not dangerous. They're not abnormal. It's a cold spring. It is a cold spring. How that's funny. The craziest rooster I ever had was a silky. Yeah, all breeds can have crazy ones. We've had the one that was crazy for us was a silky Swedish flower mix, and he was nuts. He was he was crazy. But I think for my friend, the craziest one she ever had was a leghorn. So I think it depends on just how the chicken is. They're very odd. And some roosters are fine for years, and then all of a sudden they're brats. So yeah. And it's a very cold spring, actually. It is, right now, it is still way too cold. Like way too cold for this time of year. and it's windy, and it really should be warmer than this, and I'm just kind of sick of this weather. Oh my God. Okay, what was another question on my list? Do you prefer certain breeds for egg color? I don't have a preference for egg color one way or another, but I do like having a variety. I have clear egg cartons in my fridge, and I like looking in my fridge and seeing browns and blues and greens and whites, and I like the variety. So I don't prefer one egg color over another because really there's no difference. But I like the way they look in the fridge, and when I take them out and sit them on my counter because I'm baking, and I like having the different colors. Not for any particular reason, I just like the rainbow look. Have I ever cracked open a fertilized egg by accident? Okay. So a fertilized egg is simply an egg that has been fertilized by a rooster. I'm assuming by this question, the person who submitted it meant an egg with a chick in it, and the answer is no. That has never happened. One, I collect eggs like 6 times a day. Okay, I'm out here all day long. I work out here a lot. I'm a writer, so I'll sit out here and work a lot. And because I'm out here all the time, picking up eggs is really easy. I've never had a hen sit on an egg for 24 hours unless I wanted her to. But 2, when I bring the eggs in, I candle them. Okay, so I take my candler, shut off all the lights, take my candler. Even eggs I'm not going to hatch. I take my candler, I look for cracks, I look for shells that are too porous because I sell eggs for eating, and I don't want to sell eggs for eating that are not perfect. The not perfect ones I keep for myself, and I use them in my baking and stuff. I don't have a problem with the non-perfect ones, but if I'm going to sell them and charge money, $5 a dozen is what I charge, and if I'm going to sell those eggs, yeah, they should be pretty perfect. So I candle them, so I always know if there would be something developing inside, I would see it. So I've never cracked one open by accident. I know some people have. How do you handle broody hens when you're not hatching? So I have silkies. I have more than silkies, but I have a whole bunch of silkies, and they tend to go weirdly broody. I have a broody one sitting in the barn, and then I have 3 broody ones sitting in a coop over that way. They're pains in the butt. And literally, you have to just keep taking them off the nest. Yes, you can do the broody cage and stuff like that, but I don't care enough to do the broody cage. I don't think that's fun. So I just keep taking them off the nest till they get bored. Eventually, they break out of it, unless I notice that a hen is physically declining because she's been sitting so long hoping for babies that she's starting to decline. Then I will grab some eggs from some chicks from the incubator that have just hatched, shove them under her. Ta-da, you're a mom. Stop being broody. So I'll do that. But usually I just wait for them to snap out of it and just keep taking them off the nest. Because they eventually, most of the time, snap out of it. I've only ever had 2 that didn't. What's your go-to way to use up extra eggs? Angel food cake. I use a lot of egg whites in my angel food cake, and then I can use the yolks to make pound cake. Because I like angel food cake, and my mom really likes pound cake, so my mom takes the pound cake home, and I eat the angel food cake, and everybody's happy. That's my favorite thing to do with them. I don't usually have extra eggs because I've got 2 sons. They like to make omelets, and they're both in their teenagehood. Teenagers eat a lot. So my one son will make a 6 egg omelet. That's a lot of eggs. So I normally don't have extra eggs. They're either in the incubator or getting eaten because I do sell eggs. So I don't normally have a lot of extra ones, but if I do, angel food cake and pound cake. How do you keep your hens laying during the winter? I don't. Okay, I know some people, you can add artificial light to your coop, and you can do it that way. Hanging an extra light in your coop and having it come on before the sun sets and stay on a couple extra hours can get your hens to lay in the winter. I don't worry about it because I keep new layers every year, right? Young hens. I keep a whole bunch that I hatch. And they'll usually start laying in the winter just as the other ones, the older hens, are starting to wrap up because it's their first season. They want to get going. So usually they'll start laying and they'll lay through their first winter. So I will have eggs through my winter. And then the other hens pick up in the spring, and we have a lot of eggs in the spring, which is good because I like to hatch them. Ah, that's interesting. Sorry, if I look way out across the field across the road there's a black bear wandering past. He's not very close, and it's not a problem. We live in bear country. He's just wandering, he or she, which is a good thing. You don't want to be close enough to tell, especially if it's a mama. But that's fine. We're not going to worry about it. Okay, I have some general chicken care questions. What's your favorite breed of chicken and why? Okay, my favorite breed is always going to be a Silkie. And that's because my son is the one who got into Silkies. I was more into like layers, and I have lots of layers. But he wanted Silkies, so he got Silkies, and I was like, well, I want layers, but if you want Silkies, okay. And I absolutely fell in love with them. Especially some of the little hens. I've got a hen, Lucy, a lavender hen, and she is the sweetest little thing. They'll walk at your feet. They're adorable. They'll sit on the deck and peck at the door. Excuse us, we'd like some snacks now. But they're adorable. Do you free range your chickens, or do they stay in a run? We free range, except for the ones that are in the breeding coops. So I have a group of 3 hens and a rooster and a group of 2 hens and a rooster for my I want specific color chicks out of those Silkies with that exception, and that's only for another 6 weeks. But with that single exception, I free range. So they just wander where they will. Is it safe? Yes, but that's because we have the dogs. So the next question on the list is, how do you protect your flock from predators? The answer is livestock guardian dogs. We have 2. We have Vodka, who is a Great Pyrenees, and we have Tequila, who is a Great Pyrenees Anatolian Shepherd cross, and they are fantastic at their job. Since they grew up and started doing their job full-time all the time, we have not had a problem. Before, when they were like puppies, we were still having coyotes and a fox, and now the fox has vanished. Don't ask. And the coyotes, we don't talk about that sometimes. Sometimes if you talk about the wrong things, you get in trouble on YouTube. So there's some things we just don't talk about, but the coyotes are... Don't worry about it. They're just not a problem. Okay, so the dogs do their job. Do you feed layer pellets, crumble, or do I mix my own feed? Okay, I'm not going to mix my own feed. That's a lot of work. And the feed we use is milled right here, like nearby. They have a plant here that they make it at, and it's local ingredients for the most part. I'm not going to bother mixing my own feed. It's a lot of work for very little reward. So usually we actually feed an all flock or a grower, because I don't feed layer because I have a lot of roosters and I have the ducks and I have the turkey. I feed something that everyone can eat and then individually supplement the different species, because they all free range together. I've got turkeys and ducks and chickens all just wandering willy-nilly. So I don't want to feed them something that someone else can't eat. And the layer feed for chickens is not always good for ducks. And the feed you would feed for ducks is not always suitable for turkeys. And so I like to feed something that's basically suitable for everyone, and then supplement as needed. The ducks, for example, need niacin, and the chickens don't really need niacin. So you kind of, you get creative when you have a mixed flock like we do. Do you use supplemental light in the winter? I think I already answered that one, but no, I don't bother. I let them take their break. I don't need it. It's not that you can't. You can, and a lot of people do. It's just, again, a lot of work for very little reward. And I'm into, if I'm going to do something and put a lot of work into something, like running electricity to the barn, I'm going to get something out of it. And that's just not enough to get out of it. The few extra eggs, I don't need them. What's the funniest thing a chicken has ever done on your farm? Came and knocked on my window. So my window is about 10 feet above the ground, and I don't know how she got up there, but my window's open, so it's a crank window, and she got in between the window and the screen and was pecking on the glass because she was between the window and the screen, so she's pecking on the window part to get my attention. What are you doing? Get down. You're going to break your legs. You're a Silkie. Get out of there. It was nonsense. And the other one of them snuck into my dad's car and went for about a 45-minute ride, and he had to turn around and come back. He's like, there. Sorry. Wasn't my fault. It's chicken's fault. Do you name your chickens, and what are some of their names? Yes, I do. I don't ever want to have so many chickens that I can't remember their names. Being able to know that that one is Saruman and that one is Lucy is really important to me. And the one that Shadowfax is wandering around behind, where is he? There he is. And there's a chicken in front of him, I think. Oh, the chicken went under the barn. But the chicken that he was just chasing was lonesome. He wasn't chasing it, he was just walking behind it. It was lonesome. And we have Jabba. We have Mira. There's a white one named Saruman. You can't see them right now, but I can turn this a little bit. So there's some chickens that way. You can't really see them great because they're kind of far away. But they're there. Okay? They are there. But I've got, in that one, I've got Radagast, Saruman, Mira, Jabba. I've got a duck named Delilah. I've got Blue the turkey. Yes, I name them. Oops, sorry, that was a real jerk. But yes, I name them. I absolutely name everybody. That one's Lonesome. The one that was just running that way, that's Lonesome. The reason he's named Lonesome is because he likes to go off by himself. He'll come up and camp out by the front door. And instead of spending the day with the flock, he just prefers it. It's fine. So we just called him Lonesome because he's kind of a lone chicken. He likes to hang out with the cats. So he has friends. They're just not chicken friends, which is fine. Okay? It's absolutely fine. We don't need to worry about that. He's a good chicken. But I don't want to have so many chickens that I don't know their name. Okay? I'll move out of the way so you can see Shadowfax. He's there eating his hay. Right there. But I don't want to have so many chickens that I don't know their name. I like being able to look out over the grass and go, well, that's Mira, and that's Houdini, and that's Lucy, and that's Little One, and they do all have names. That was Jabba. Jabba Prowan. He's a good chicken. I like Jabba quite a lot. What age do you usually start seeing eggs from new pullets? A pullet, by the way, is a young hen who hasn't started laying yet. So, depends on the breed. Thank you, Jabba. That's fantastic. We got Blue here as well. The turkey. He's going that way as well. And Jabba's now over here. So if he gets really loud, it's Jabba's fault. But what age? Well, the Silkies. Thank you. He's literally 2 feet this way. There. That's Jabba and Houdini. The white one is Saruman. And that duck you see, that's Delilah. And then I also have Sauron, Mira, Radagast. So, yes, we have a few. We have a few here. Thanks. He's right behind me now. He's so loud. Oh, sorry. Sometimes when I move the camera, it jerks like that because I kind of suck at this. There we go. But seriously, he's literally a foot away here. That's awesome. We're just loud. They're chickens. Roosters are loud. That's one of the reasons people don't always want to have roosters. So yeah. That's a more distant rooster. That's not Jabba here. It's Jabba and Houdini. And that one's Radagast. Okay. What age do we start seeing eggs? In the Silkies, it's like 8 to 10 months. In the layers, it's between 4 and 6 months. Depends on the exact breed makeup of that specific chicken. But layers are designed to lay. They lay earlier. They lay more. Thank you. They lay earlier, they lay more. Silkies do not lay as many eggs, and they take longer to get going. They're more of an ornamental breed than a laying breed. Thank you, guys. I don't have any snacks. I swear I don't. Getting invaded. I guess I am sitting in your area. So I'm invading you. Sorry. Okay. Next question on my list. What's your strategy for dealing with feather picking or bullying? Separating the bully. If the bully won't smarten up, he would have to leave. I'm not tolerating a bully, someone who goes and picks everyone's feathers, and I'm not going to put up with it. It's not worth it. Okay? It's seriously not worth it. Yes, I know, guys. I moved. I'm sorry. I know. We're all just over here because you never know, there might be snacks in my pants. You don't know. So yeah. So I wouldn't keep one that was bullying everyone else. No, it's not worth it. Do you use nesting herbs or any coop extras? Not really. Most of my guys spend their days out on the grass or in the woods. They're not that interested in those nest box herbs or all the little extras. I have a couple of swings for the chickens that I put up for my own amusement, but they don't really need toys. They kind of, especially if they free range, now if they're confined to a small coop, you might have to do something so they're not bored. But my guys, it's a non-issue. Okay, it's literally a non-issue. So I don't have to worry about it. I don't do any of those fancy extra things. You don't really need to. Okay. Some chicken management questions. Have you tried incubating eggs? Is it difficult? I incubate eggs all summer. Okay, for months every summer. And it's not difficult. My recommendations are get a good incubator, for one. Those cheap $50 ones that you get off Temu generally are junk. So if you want to do it seriously, not just experiment, if you want to do it seriously, get a half-decent incubator. It's not difficult. The hardest thing about incubating is not being all over the eggs all the time. Okay? That's literally the hardest thing, is not being all over the eggs. It's easy to want to handle them all the time, to candle them all the time, but I candle at day 10 and then I candle at lockdown. And I make sure my temps and my humidity are consistent, and otherwise you're pretty hands-off. The hardest part is being hands-off for those 3 weeks it takes chickens to hatch. It takes 4 weeks for ducks to hatch, so that's even harder. What's your favorite incubator brand or method? Okay, so I love Brinceas. The Brincea incubator is top-notch. The problem is they cost a lot, okay? So bang for your buck, Sportsman incubator is really good. But Brincea is better. It just costs a lot. Okay. So I have Brincea incubators. They do cost a fortune. And that's okay. I mean, they're worth it. It's just they're out of a lot of people's price ranges. If you can't afford a Brincea, that's okay. Get what you can afford. So the best incubator for you is when you can afford right away. But my preferred brand is Brincea. What's my favorite method? We dry hatch here. I don't necessarily recommend dry hatching to everybody. My favorite incubation method is to dry hatch. And I dry incubate and I dry hatch. I don't add water. And that's because we live in between two of the largest lakes in North America. Okay? Big lake over that way, big lake over that way. It's very humid here. So because it's very humid here, very, very humid, we do not add water to our incubators. If you live in a drier climate, you're going to have to. So your favorite method for incubating is going to vary greatly depending on where you live. Do I let broody hens hatch their own eggs? Very rarely. Okay, sometimes I will. Sometimes I'll let a mama hatch her own eggs, and that's fine. But for the most part, I use my incubators because I need to know exactly when everyone's hatching, because I sell a lot of my babies. So I need to know, okay, there's a batch of ducks due to hatch today. I need to know that. And you don't always know that if mamas are hatching them, because mamas will sometimes get off the eggs and stay off the eggs for a little bit. And that doesn't necessarily kill the eggs, but it can lengthen the incubation time. So you don't really know. So because I need to know, for the most part, I hatch in an incubator. How do you introduce new chickens to an existing flock? Okay, everyone has a different method. A lot of people tell you put the chickens in at night. A lot of people tell you put the new chickens in a small cage inside their run so that everyone gets used to each other. My chickens are stupid. Don't judge them. They are not intelligent. All I have to do to introduce new chicks, so when I take those chicks and I put them out here. The thing I do is I chase everybody out of the barn. I take the new chickens and I put them in the barn. And then I chase everyone back into the barn. And by the time everyone is back in the barn, they have forgotten who belongs and who doesn't. My chickens are not the smartest. Okay? They're not the most intelligent of chickens. They're fine. I love them to pieces, but they're really easy to fool. All I have to do is put everyone in the barn and then chase everyone back in. It's not the method most people use, but it works for us. What's your approach to worming or health management? I would not deworm my chickens unless I saw evidence of worms, and then I would have my vet run a fecal and use the correct dewormer. And the reason for that is I don't want to give the wrong thing, because the wrong thing won't work, and I don't want to over medicate, so I'm not going to just randomly deworm. I'll deworm if there's a problem. I haven't had to. Health management is I keep a clean coop. I let them free range, which allows for happier, healthier chickens. And in general, I keep a really close eye. If anyone looks like they're getting sick, I try to deal with it right away, or I separate them from the flock right away so everyone else doesn't get sick. Chicken diseases tend to spread really quickly. If you can spot one that's sick now, remove it. So that's basically what I do. Everyone has a different method. Have you ever had to treat a chicken for bumblefoot or injury? Yeah. If you have chickens long enough, you will get some kind of injury. So yes, I've treated bumblefoot. The best way we did it was remove as much as we could, like remove the scab and everything, soak the foot, and then apply a really good antibiotic ointment, and that worked really well. And as for injuries, there's always going to be, hi, it's the duck. Yeah. Yes, that's Delilah. But there's always going to be something happening, right? There's always going to be something. Your chicken is going to get his foot stuck in a wire. Things happen, like, constantly. Something's always happening. So, yeah, you're going to have to treat the occasional injury. I've had to wrap wings. Things happen. What do you do with excess roosters after a hatch? I keep them. I don't get rid of my excess roosters as long as they're decent guys, because I like having the excess roosters. We have a lot of land. They can go into the forest. They can do lots of stuff. We don't have a problem having excess roosters. Like, I have 6 roosters to 19 hens, and that's not an issue for us. It would be an issue for some people. I know that. But for us, we just keep them. They're good flock protectors. And it gives me options when I'm picking breeding groups. So I can then be like, I'm glad I kept you because I kind of want babies out of you. So I keep the extra ones. If I do keep a bunch of chicks and a whole bunch of them end up roosters, I'm fine with it. Though I tend to hatch more hens than roosters. Not sure why. Do you ever sell eggs, chicks, or birds from your flock? I will sell eggs and I will sell chicks. I do not sell adult birds. I don't love the rehoming of adult birds. If you have any other option, I don't like spreading disease. My flock isn't diseased, but the fastest way to spread chicken diseases is to move adult birds from one flock to another flock. I don't like to do that. So, but yeah. Maybe we live close together. Someone just commented, that's interesting. I live between the 2 biggest lakes in North America. It is very interesting because it's annoying, but I'm complaining. I'm complaining about it all of a sudden. I like living here. It's nice. It's just our winters are so cold. But yeah. Okay. Where was I? Do I ever sell eggs, chicks, or birds? Yes, I sell eggs and chicks. I do not sell adult birds. I don't love moving adult birds around because of potential spread of disease. I don't buy adult birds either. It's just not something I do. I know a lot of people do, and that's fine. I just don't. It's one of the ways I avoid disease in my flock is I don't move adult birds around. So that's why my flock is fairly healthy. I've never brought in an adult bird. And because I don't bring them in, I also don't sell them. So, because I think that would be hypocritical. I don't want to bring in birds, but I'm perfectly fine selling them. But I will sell chicks and eggs. Do your chickens get along with other animals on your farm? Yeah, Everyone just free ranges together. So Shadowfax is eating his hay. The horse, Arwen, is laying down. And the chickens will literally ride on the backs of the horse and goat. I've got a few videos where they're doing that. It's pretty funny. They all get along. What's one thing you wish you knew before getting chickens? I knew a lot because I'm a research nerd. I really research a lot. So I knew quite a bit. The thing I probably wish I had known, I wish I had known that they do better in the winter than I thought they did. Right? I was all in for the winter. I was all ready to do the winter stuff. Okay? I was ready to do winter stuff. I was like, I've got heat and they didn't need any of the stuff that I did. They were fine as long as they got out of the wind and they were able to have shelter consistently, and they were fine. They even went out when it was 40 below. They were fine. So I wish I'd known that I didn't have to do all the things I did because they weren't going to appreciate it anyway. Okay, so at this point, I've been going for over an hour. I'm actually going to wrap up because I actually have things to do. It's my one son's birthday. I have to go make a cake. It'll be fun. I like making cakes. So I do want to say that we started out this live stream talking about roosters and their benefits and how you don't need a rooster for eggs. Roosters do have their place. They are lovely, they are lively, they are adorable. I would never be with them on my farm ever again, but they are not required for eggs. Your hens will lay eggs without them. If you're just starting out with chickens, I do recommend you start without a rooster. It's a little bit easier. The flock dynamics are a little bit simpler, a little bit better for learning curve. But if you've had chickens for a while, it's fine. You can always add a rooster later once you know your flock. But at the beginning, if you've never raised chickens and you weren't raised around chickens, it's probably best to just not get a rooster right away. That's about it for us here today at Andersen Acres. We are going to leave by letting you take a slightly closer look at the animals. Drop a comment below and tell me if you've ever heard someone say hens need a rooster to lay. And let me know if you've heard any other chicken myths. Maybe we'll talk about them next time. We'll see you tomorrow.